What a head, son! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be continuing on the pricing mistakes video, and I'm going to be talking about goalkeepers. So if you guys have not watched the pricing mistakes video, I do recommend that you guys go check it out. Great video if I do say so myself, and I kind of looked at each position from a more holistic overview to give you guys the value insights into those positions. But I said in that video that I'll be continuing and taking a deeper dive, and that's exactly what this video is going to be, the first of the 4 positional reviews. And as I said, it's going to be about goalkeepers. So in this video, everything between the sticks will be discussed. So hopefully by the end of this video, you guys will be able to select the best goalkeeper in the game for your drafts. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first talking point is going to be more of a kind of general talking point. This is going to be a kind of discussion that you guys have to focus on. It's going to be about set and forget goalkeepers or going for a rotation pair. So if you guys are maybe new to FPL and you don't know what these terms kind of mean, a set and forget goalkeeper is a single goalkeeper that is going to play every single game for your team. And then what that allows you to do is pick a really cheap goalkeeper on your bench that's probably going to cost about 4.0 million. If you guys have watched my previous first draft videos, you guys will see a set and forget example. I've got Reya in those drafts at 4.5, and on the bench, I've got simply a 4.0 backup goalkeeper that won't start any Prem games. So obviously you guys don't have to necessarily go for a 4.5, you can go more expensive than that. I just kind of always go for a cheap goalkeeper, and that's the style I always use. But now going on to the rotation pair, and this means that you have 2 goalkeepers that both start for their respective teams, and you can then rotate them depending on who has the better game. Now the only thing about rotation pairs that I've found quite annoying throughout my previous seasons is that if you do go for a combination, you always seem to bench the wrong one. Now obviously this doesn't happen every single game week, but it's quite annoying when you have 2 points on your starting 11 and then your bench option has a 6-pointer or an 8-pointer because they managed to get a clean sheet and some save points. But if you manage to crack the rotation pair code, you might be able to get some more points from your goalkeeper position. I just don't know if it's worth spending that extra 0.5 to 1 mil on a rotation pair. But you guys must kind of decide this for yourself. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on more set and forget options just because when we kind of look at prior seasons as a whole, this doesn't take into consideration any rotation and it simply goes from game week 1 to game week 38 playing every game. Now another thing to note in this video is that you don't exactly have to own the same goalkeeper from game week 1 to game week 38. We now have 3 wild cards this season, so at a minimum you might have 3 different goalkeepers throughout the season, so just keep that in mind when you do analyze these options. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys are really keen on a rotation pair. Let me know which goalkeepers kind of rotate, or if you do favor the set and forget process, let me know who your current goalkeeper is in those drafts. But now going on to the good stuff about this video, we're going to be looking at many kind of graphs and plots and values and data. So I hope you guys are strapped in and ready to go and the mind's open for all these insights. Now the first graph I'm going to show you guys is the exact same insight from the pricing mistakes video. It's going to be a simple points from last season versus price from this season just to see which options are underpriced or overpriced. We discussed how to kind of read this graph in the pricing mistakes video, so go check that out if you guys don't exactly know what's going on here. But the linear regression line is going to give you a simple average of the price versus points metric. So comparing these options, we can see at the top right hand side, Allison overperforming his points. He looks like quite an undervalued option. And then at the bottom left, just please keep in mind that some of these options didn't start every single Prem game, but we'll go into more depth when we look at the 90-minute stats. So you guys can pause this video right now if you want to get some more insights, maybe look at some more options on the screen, but I'm going to move on right now, but you guys can always come back to this talking point later on. So how I'm going to actually split up these first couple graphs is I'm going to talk about the options at 4.5 and then also 5 million. The reason for that is that you guys heard it in the introduction. I currently am looking at a 4.5 option and I'm pretty sure most of you are going for a cheaper goalkeeper just because they still get you some relatively respectable points. So right now let's take a look at those 4.5 options and go a little bit more in depth into them. So as you guys can see on screen, from left to right, from Reya to Sanchez, these are the points that each of these 4.5 scored last season. So the first kind of talking point is going to be obviously Reya did not start every single game, so please keep that in mind and just be a little bit more patient because I will be getting onto the per 90-minute stats shortly, but I just want to kind of give you guys that insight so you don't exactly look at this graph, switch off, and then go pick Sanchez. Another thing to note is that if a player came into the Premier League this season or if they are from a promoted side, we don't have any stats on them except for the championship stats, and we can really focus on them because there is quite a step up to the Premier League. So on screen right now, the 2 players that I want to focus on are going to be Guayita and Sanchez. So Sanchez, he's historically kind of a safe 4.5 goalkeeper to go, but actually was the highest performing 4.5 last season. So Brighton, always usually a defensive side, they rack up a few clean sheet points, so if you guys want to go for a safe option, Sanchez does look quite good. However, what I want to raise attention to is Guayita because Crystal Palace just signed Sam Johnson And the interesting thing about Guayita is that he didn't even start every single game for Crystal Palace last season. Butlin came into the squad quite a few times. Guayita was actually out injured, but then there was some rotation there towards the end of last season where Crystal Palace actually looked at their best. So why I'm saying this is that if Sam Johnson, just signed for Crystal Palace, comes into the side, plays all 38 games, I honestly can say that he's a great option to go for and one that's currently being underlooked. Crystal Palace under Patrick Vieira have been a completely different side, and if they can replicate the form of last season into this season, I think those Crystal Palace options are underpriced gems. So that's my current take on the 4.5, but we'll go more in depth when we look at the value and per 90-minute points and value stats. But right now, I think Sanchez is a safe option, but Guayita or the Crystal Palace goalkeeper has my attention. Now we're going to shift the attention to the 0.5 more than the 4.5, so coming in at 5.0 million, these are the goalkeepers, and the reason I want to talk about this is simply one word, and that's Mendy. So if you guys don't know, Mendy from Chelsea is the most selected goalkeeper in the game at 5.0 million, and I can honestly not really understand it. As you guys can see on screen right now, Mendy was not even the best 5.0 option in the game at the current moment, and he actually had a pretty mediocre season. Now I know what you guys might be thinking, maybe he was rotated last season, but no, he actually had the 4th highest clean sheets from a goalkeeper in the Prem, but yet he's not even the 4th best option in that 5.0 bracket in FPL. Now why this could mean that maybe Chelsea were actually pretty secure at the back. Mendy wasn't even getting save points. Maybe when Chelsea won with the clean sheet, he wasn't getting any bonus points because other options were scoring more goals or assists or that sort of thing. But it is quite worrying when you see the 4th highest clean sheet goalkeeper not even having that many points. This season might be completely different. We might see a worse Chelsea defense that could have its kind of pros and cons. The pros, he might rack up some more save points and therefore bonus points, but then it also has the con of them maybe not getting as many clean sheets, and that is a little bit worrying. So if you guys want to go for a goalkeeper who was on track with Nick Pope, who played for a team that got relegated, you can always go for the Chelsea goalkeeper. In the same bracket though, we have Sarr from Wolves, who had a pretty good season. I know the points difference between Sarr and Martinez isn't as much, it's about 16 to 17 points, but even with the bad season that Wolves had, Sarr still racked up a lot of points. Fabianski, Ramsdale also there. I just think Ramsdale this season probably won't go for him with all those 4.5 defenders from Arsenal already. So I think Ramsdale is kind of made a little bit redundant. But I think if you want to go for Fabianski, if West Ham have a great season, he might be on track. And I mean, if United have a great season, De Gea might also be a great option. But currently, I think that the 4.5s are slightly better than the 5 mils. So now we've kind of focused on the 4.5s and the 5 mils. Let's take a look back here. Let's go back to all goalkeepers and rate them from best to worst in terms of points per 90 minutes. Why I'm going for points per 90 minutes is that you kind of want to see if these options were rotated, if they still managed to get a few points. And now we're going to see the kind of the emergence of a Reya and options that didn't start every game. So as you guys can see on screen right now, the number one option in terms of points per 90 minutes is going to be Alisson, an option that played basically every single game for Liverpool. So to have a points per 90 minutes that high is simply outstanding. You can see there's a massive gap between him and Edison in terms of those price points. But if you guys do look at the x-axis, basically 0.5 points between them. You guys can now see why FPL kind of priced Edison and Laurice at 5.5 because they are better than these other options. But then when we see Guayita and Reya in there at 4.5, this does look quite enticing. Mendy kind of comes in at the middle of the park, which I think is fine unless there was going to be 4.5s outperforming him. And as you guys can see, Reya and the Crystal Palace goalkeeper do come in quite nice. If you guys want to go for the Leeds goalkeeper, Meslier, unfortunately I have some bad news for you. He has the worst points per game in this kind of rating that I did, so I probably will be steering clear of that Leeds defense. But I think the main conclusion here is that 1, we have Alisson at a massive points per game value, and he only comes in at 5.5, which I think FPL have kind of underpriced him. So there's a massive decision there to make if you guys want to go for him as your third option, because I do think in terms of value, that could actually be the right call. But the number 2 option, I think the one that's more relevant here, is that Guayita and Reya look simply outstanding, and at 4.5, I can't really overlook these goalkeepers. I'd also suggest going for them over an Edison or Laurice. Yes, Edison has some good points per game, but I just think from a goalkeeper point of view, there are other better options. You guys can also include Laurice in a similar debate. But now that we've seen points per 90 minutes, I want to show you guys value, which is basically the gradient of the first graph that I showed you. This is going to be points divided by price. So points per million is a better kind of metric to kind of target there. And this obviously also will take into account the total points, but not to 90 minutes. That's going to be the next graph that I do show you. Why I want to show you this is I just want to show you guys some value. If you guys want to go for a nailed option here, if they were nailed last season, should be nailed this season. And if they do have a good points per price metric, that's usually a good sign. So yet again, we see Alisson here with the massive ranking of about 32 points per million that you guys do spend, which, spoiler alert, if you guys did not watch the pricing mistakes video, that's the best value per million in the game. We then have Sa and Laurice, so Sa could actually be underpriced here if you guys want to go for Wolves. I think they're going to kind of have a similar defensive performance from last season. I do think the Wolves goalkeeper does look quite strong. Then we have Laurice Edison, the usual suspects, with Sanchez coming in at 4.5. Unfortunately with Reya, you can yet again see, because of that long-term injury last season, didn't have the best kind of value or points last season. But when you do incorporate 90-minute stats, he does look very strong. Unfortunately, when you're only picking 2 goalkeepers, the debate about which 2 to go for is kind of nailed down because you're only going for 2 assets. And that's why the middle of the park here, I'm not going to focus on too much because honestly, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time. A stat that's not a waste of time though is going to be the value per 90 minutes, which is now what we're going to move on to. What I've done here is I've taken the value, which is points divided by price, and then I've divided that by 90 minutes just to show you guys the per game averages. And on your screen right now is basically the conclusion to this video. It's going to be the top 3 goalkeeper options that I'll be looking at. It's going to be Guayita, it's going to be Edison and Reya. Now please remember, when I talk about Guayita, I'm talking about whatever Crystal Palace goalkeeper is currently between the sticks. That could be Sam Johnson, Butland or Guayita, but I don't really know why they signed Johnson if they're not going to start him. In the middle of the pack there, you've kind of got Mendy, Edison and Laurice grouped together. I think I would avoid these 3 options from a goalkeeper point of view, and I'd go for their more outfield defenders in terms of maybe a Cancelo, a Perisic, or maybe even a Chua or a James. But to kind of conclude my video here, as I do think you guys have to have a debate about if you want to go more expensive in your goalkeeper position or you want to go cheap, as I think that Alisson is honestly a great option to go for if you guys strictly want to go on value. I think this makes sense if you guys want to go for maybe a 4 at the back, because now instead of going for a Mendy and Edison or Laurice, you can go for a Perisic, you go for a Cancelo, you go for a Chua or a James, and then you can keep that other spot open maybe for a cheaper option instead of a Robertson. But I think most of us will go for a Reya or whatever Crystal Palace goalkeeper is picked this season. Make sure you guys watch out for the Crystal Palace preseason, as I think that'll give us a nice little insight into who's going to be the number 1. But currently my first draft goalkeeper of Reya is probably the one I'm going to go for, and I just hope that Brentford have a similar season to last season and they don't have the Prem second season curse. Let me know what goalkeeper you guys do favor. Do you think I'm wrong on Mendy? Do you think he's going to have a great season? Are you going for a reliable Sanchez or maybe even a Sa, as they've been returning some really respectable points per million? Whatever it is, let me know what you guys are going for. But this is the best wrap of the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for more content, especially these positional reviews coming up in the next few days. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.